All right, so you may have noticed that our chair is unavailable today. He has town-wide duties. For those who don't know me, I am Mark Sunan. I am the vice chair of the commission. If there are no objections, I'd like to call the meeting to order. We'll start with action on the minutes from December 19th, along with the current roll call. If there is any motion for the December 19th meeting. And then Sylvia, if you'd be so kind as to run through.
Yes, so far today, we don't have anyone from Auburn, Bedford, Candia, so let's start with Chester. Ed Munson in the room. From Deerfield, we have Errol Rhodes.
Here.
And just snuck in, Redwood.
Here.
From Derry, we have virtually, we have John O'Connor.
Yes and yes.
Thanks, John. Francistown, we have Gary Schneckenberg.
Here and yes.
We have from Goffstown in the room, Colleen Mayu. I have a frenetic television. It's my constant. Thank God, gee. No one in the room or virtually yet from Hook, Londonderry. In the room, we have Art Rugg. And online, we have Brian Battaglia.
Present and yes.
And I see I missed from Goffstown, Jacob LaFontaine.
Present and yes.
Thanks, Jacob. From Manchester in the room, we have Peter Capano.
Present and yes.
Ray Clement.
Here and yes.
And online, we have Marcus Constiglione.
Abstain and yes.
Thank you. New Boston in the room, we have Mark Sunan.
Here and yes.
No one from Ware, and from Wyndham, we have Ed LaPointe.
Here and yes.
Did I miss anyone from the town? Great. From New Hampshire DOT in the room. Don. Thanks, Lucy. Good morning, yes. And then non-voting member, just to mention, we have Jessica Wilcox from New Hampshire DOT.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
All right, so we don't have any old business, correct?
No old business.
Outstanding. So new business, we'll start off with an announcement to make.
We have an important announcement. It doesn't happen that often, so I am getting my 30 seconds. I sent out an email yesterday to, I think, most of the folks. We have possibly a new little planner in the world coming. And so Cam Perlman in our office, one of our top regional planners, he's going to have a baby with his wife, and her name will be Nora Francis. I have a baby pool going. So for $5, you can get in. Half goes to the winner, the other half goes to Nora Francis. So $5 at the end. Come see me. I'll need the date, time, tiebreaker, weight. So for those who, oh, and I see we have Jeff Moulton from Derry. So that's my 30-second announcement.
Yeah, but wait, so any other information you might give us?
Oh, well, the expected due
There you
date.
go.
Expected due date. Okay, everyone calm down. Is January 31st.
Oh,
January 3rd, and this is first baby for her.
Right.
So that makes a difference, I know.
And him too.
And
Hey, that's my birthday.
January 31st.
Yep.
Happy birthday.
So Marcus, you're gonna want in on this.
Yeah.
Seeing also coming in is Linda Kuhnhart from Francistown.
All right, so we will start our business agenda with the 2024 safety performance targets. Zach and David will be looking for a vote to adopt the targets they will share with us.
Whatever reason the mouse now works.
Yeah, I'm not sure. There is my share. Yeah, we did this last time. Where is it? This right here? All right.
How do we look?
Looking good.
All right. So, good morning, everyone. I apologize for the people who are now seeing this for the third time. We'll try to be brief. But Zach and I are going to go through the 2024 safety performances measures for the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission region. So the FAST Act continues the Highway Safety Improvement Program's goal of significantly reducing fatalities and serious injuries on our public roadways. The FAST Act requires the DOTs to measure and report performance in the following categories. Those categories are safety, pavement and bridge, system performance and congestion, freight movement and congestion mitigation, and air quality, also known as CMAQ. Today we'll be talking about PM1, which has to do with safety, and this is a safety measure that is updated annually. And when we're talking about safety measures, we're talking about these 5 federally required safety measures: number and rate of fatalities, number and rate of serious injuries, and the number of non-motorized fatalities and non-motorized serious injuries. These are the data points that Zach will be going over in more detail a little later on in the presentation. So once the state of New Hampshire DOT sets their state targets, it is up to the MPOs to review and recommend either supporting the state targets or setting their own regional target. For the 2024 PM1 safety performance targets, SNHPC is recommending supporting the state targets with the exception of the fatality rate. For the fatality rate, we're going to recommend adopting a regional target, which we have done in the past, and we'll go over that in a little more detail a little later in the presentation. And now Zach is going to go over some of the data points.
Yeah, so as Dave mentioned, this is going to be the third time for some people, so I apologize for that, although Linda Kuhnhart is here anyway, so it can't be that bad. So I've tried to provide some color commentary when I do these as well. And so just quickly, we had 23 fatalities in our region in 2022 and 124 serious injuries, which cost all the crashes altogether cost about $250 million in direct economic expenses to the region. And you can see that fatalities are overrepresented for pedestrian and motorcycle. Pedestrian motorcycle. As I mentioned before, starting from about 2011, the 5-year average, we can see that crashes are going up, and this is happening nationwide. So for in our region, it's up about 35% from 2014. And a lot of people tie this into the adoption of smartphones. And we don't have really great data on this, but we do have the National Occupant Protection Use Survey, also known as NOPUS, which I had not heard of before, but this is when they go out and they basically watch us all driving and, say what we're doing. So we can see that talking on a cell phone without a headset, at any time during the day, there was about a 6% chance the person would be doing that. And now that's declined to about 2%. 2% there. At the same time, manipulating a handheld device has increased from about 0 up to about 3% there. So there has been an increase. The problem with this is we don't see this anywhere else in the world, really. So what we have is road fatalities per 100,000 resident. We have countries from Australia to the United States, and everybody is much higher in 1995, and everybody improves by 2021, except us and Chile. And we, and all these countries have cell phones. They're all adopting smartphones at the same time as us. We see this across, not just per capita rate, but we also see this fatalities per capita, fatalities per registered vehicle, and fatalities per miles driven. And we see this for countries from Australia, Canada, that we think of as our peers, kind of, as in more sparsely developed, more sparsely populated countries. But we also see it for, places like France, Germany, Netherlands. The US, Australia and Canada, for most of these measures, is much closer to the Netherlands than it is to us, which might be surprising. We can also see that, that as we drive, for everybody, fatalities do go up, but we're still much higher per the mile driven. We're also seeing that this increased faster for pedestrians between 2010 and 2021. The number of fatalities increased 3 times faster than the overall crash fatalities. And this is the quote that I pulled out here, just to say that it's gotten so bad that the federal highway is starting to have to take real proactive measures on this, including, identifying that these crashes are not happening in other countries like Australia, and it's due to our the way we've developed our road system in this country. Now, this is at the last MPO meeting, Gary asked me a question about whether if you saw pedestrians more happening at night and whether it played into the what percentage of the vehicle fleet was manual. Had you seen this article when you are you familiar with this article?
Where is it from?
I'm sorry, it's from the New York Times, the upshot.
Yes, I did,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so after you said that, I'd seen this article and wanted to look at it and then forgot about it.
Yeah.
But luckily you brought it up and then Adam reminded me to share. So what we can see here is US pedestrian deaths. The bottom line is during the day and pedestrians at night. And we can see that in 2010, there was a sharp uptick in pedestrians dying at night. So there's clearly something going on here. Moreover, not only could we see that our rate is much higher than other countries like Australia, Britain, France, but there's also that uptick in 2010, which you don't see in any of the other countries. So the article from the upshot, the New York Times, dug into it, and one of the explanations they gave is that the U.S. has far more automatic vehicles than Australia, Europe does. So Europe, about 70 to 75% of the cars still there are manuals, and the idea was it's hard to use a cell phone when you're shifting. I drive a manual, I have for 10 years. It's much harder, for me to do it. Text and drive than a lot of people. And, the article leaned into this pretty heavily. And while I really like the upshot, I don't think it holds a lot of water. It's probably part of it, but it's not the whole answer, because Australia and Canada also have very high automatic rates. Their manuals are much less common in those countries. They're much more similar to the US, but they don't see that same change in either of those countries. Australia and Canada is still going down. And again, on the right, they don't see that uptick in 2010 for those countries. So there's a lot going on here, but I did want to dig into this, the vulnerable roadway user fatalities by hour. So we can see that they do, fatalities are happening more often that night in our state. And here we have on the right, which is the blue is the motorized fatalities, and the red is, pedestrian bikes. You can see that by hour, the pedestrian and bikes peaks later, peaks in that 7 to 9 p.m. as opposed to the 3 to 6 p.m. that we see for other crashes. And we also see it in time of month. Again, blue is motorized and red is bike and ped. For motorized crashes, they peak in July, August. For the bike and ped, they peak during the winter when it's darker earlier. And even within between fatalities and serious injuries, we see a difference. So fatalities is on the left, serious injuries is on the right. Blue again is motorized, and red is vulnerable road user. You can see that there's that separate peak for the number of fatalities. But when we look at serious injuries, they both peak at the same time. So there's something unique happening with fatalities in darkness. Another major driver is that we just drive more. And between 1971 and 2019, the typical U.S. driver drove 80% more than they did. So we just see way more driving, and we see this in New Hampshire as well as the rest of the country. Another factor changing is just that our vehicle fleet is much different than it used to be. Here we have weight, horsepower, acceleration time, and the percentage of vehicles produced. And we can see that weight is increased, horsepower, acceleration time is decreased, and the number of trucks versus the percentage of trucks being produced versus cars has also switched. So now we have more trucks being sold every year in this country than we do cars. And that matters because typically vehicles, larger vehicles are more dangerous to smaller vehicles or people not within a vehicle. One thing that we don't track very well is car size. We don't have a good longitudinal study for this, but here's an example. Here's an F-150, and that's the 1970s version versus the current one. And we see this across all things. When you think about my Subaru Impreza is the same size as what the Subaru Outback used to be. And now it's a larger SUV, mid-size SUV. So the US government has realized that there's a problem, and they're taking certain steps to remedy this. One is a safe system approach, which looks at doing things, increasing redundancy to try to reduce human error. One of the things where it was safer speeds. So just, one of the things, concentrating on speeds that are survivable for a person. So if you get hit by a car at 20 miles per hour, you are very likely going to live. If you get, sideswiped in an intersection at 30 miles per hour, you're probably very likely to live. But a pedestrian hit by a car going 35 miles per hour is 5 times more likely to die than one at 20. And we can see this in our own data. So we have here Manchester. We have the crashes that occurred in parking lots between 2017 and 2022. And then we have those that occurred on Bridge Street. Parking lot typically has much slower speeds. There were 10 bike pedestrian crashes during that time. None of them were fatal or serious injuries. On Bridge Street, we had 11, and about half were fatal or serious injuries. And we can see these numbers again in our data. On December 20th, a pedestrian was struck at 8:30 on the intersection of Chestnut and Bridge. So what is it? It's December, it's nighttime, and the speed is a little bit higher. The man died a few days later. Okay, I want to end on a happier note, to say that we have made real progress in this country, and to keep some perspective. So here we have a New York Times article from 1924, and we have nation roused against motor vehicle killings. And you can see that it's a person with a skull driving a car, and it might not be easy to tell, but over people. So that's a pretty dramatic image. Here's another one. It's a little bit harder to see, but it says sacrifices to the modern Moloch. Moloch is from the Hebrew Bible, is a Canaanite god that children were sacrificed to. So here we have reckless, it's hard to read, reckless and vicious driver holding up a platter of children to the auto fatalities cars. Political cartoons have never been subtle. But that was a real problem back in the day. In the 20s, in 1925, in cities over 25,000 people, 2/3 of people getting killed were pedestrians. It was higher in even bigger cities. In 1928, in Philadelphia, 824 people were struck in that single year. So, okay, but we've gotten better. So here we have fatalities per 100,000 people. So here's the 5-year rate for fatalities per person, as well as certain different safety policies that were implemented. So we can see that in it's about the late 70s, the national speed limit was limited to 55 miles per hour. That's obviously still not in case, but there was a dramatic incline in there. Later, Utah instituted the first 0.08 BAC law for driving. In 1982, the Federal Highway started tracking, NHTSA started tracking the number of fatalities that involved people that were essentially over that alcohol limit. In 1982, 48% of all fatalities were people over that limit. Today it's lower, it's about 30, but you can just see that these different policy instruments did have real impacts on the rate within our country. So quickly, we're going to go over the different measures. Here is the projected number of fatalities within then our targets are those crosses. The red dots are what we actually obtained. And then the orange is what we're suggesting as the target. You can see that we are not on, if just extrapolating out, we are not projected to meet our target for fatalities. And but for fatality rate, we are on target. And we have adjusted ours. Previously, we were at 0.75. The state rate went up, so we adjusted ours accordingly to match that, and it looks like we're right on target to hit that. Then we have the number of serious injuries. We're well on target to meet the rate of 105. For serious injury rate, again, we're doing well there and we're well on rate to meet that target. Lastly, for number of non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries, we're again well on that target to meet. We're well on our way to meeting that target. That said, there's a lot of volatility for this measure just because it's a smaller number, so there's more chance for variability. Out to you.
Thank you, Zach.
Oh, yeah.
I noticed, a lot of these new battery operated scooters, those things don't make any noise at all. They got a bunch of them around here, they can go zipping by you without any, you're surprised all of a sudden. I could see that'd be pretty dangerous driving those things because, well, you pull out, you don't know they're even there, and
Right.
oh, they're gone, you get them, that's it.
I think that would probably be, I'm not sure how that would be classified in the crash data. Yeah, so, I bet it would be, be classified, would that be a pedestrian, a bicyclist, or, somebody on the term they use, mean of other conveyance.
Well, yeah, it's a motorized,
Yeah.
and you can't hear it. I saw one yesterday, the kid had a helmet on, right down here on Granite Street, going in and out of traffic. He's flying, going by us like. You don't know he's even there.
Yeah.
Dangerous. Those are dangerous.
All right, so here we have a table that summarizes a lot of the safety measures that Zach just went over. This is at the state level. To the left, we have the 5 safety measures that we were discussing. To the right of that is the 2 most recent 5-year rolling averages. First one being 2017 through 2021, then 2018 through 2022. To the right of that, we have our recent and desired trends. The recent trend represents which way the data is going between the 2 5-year averages. The desired is the way we want the data to go, a reduction in fatalities and serious injuries. To the right of that is the state targets for 2024. They're in a decimal point because they are averages. And here we have a similar table that has our SNHPC performance measures. Once again, we have our safety measures to the left, our 2 5-year rolling averages, followed by our trends, and then to the right of the trends, the state targets. To the right of that, we have our SNHPC recommended targets that you'll be voting on adopting today. So as we stated earlier, our SNHP for 2024 is supporting 4 out of the 5 state targets, with the exception of the fatality rate per 100 million vehicle miles traveled. For that one, we are suggesting or recommending adopting a regional target of 0.795. As Zach mentioned earlier, we came to that number by proportionally increasing our last year's fatality rate in the same degree that the state increased theirs. And here we have an outline of how close we've come to hitting those targets in years past. As Zach mentioned, there's a lot of variability within the targets, especially for the smaller ones like bike ped, fatality and serious injury rate that deal with smaller numbers. But as you can see here, we have been fairly consistent and have really honed the methodology of trying to get to those targets as close as possible. And here we have a summary table going over what our recommended actions are for the performance measures. We have the safety measures to the left, the state and SNHPC 2024 targets in the center there, and then on the right, the recommended actions, which once again, where SNHP is recommending supporting the state targets for all but the fatality rate. And for the fatality rate, we're recommending setting a regional target of 0.795. And that's our presentation. Zach and I will try to answer any questions that you may have.
So the floor is open to anybody in the room who might have questions for them. Seeing none, anybody online have any questions for Zach or David? There we go. Brian.
How are you today?
Very good, thank you.
Good. Thanks for your presentation. It was very thorough. Going back to slide, I think it was 39 or 40. You talk about rolling statistics versus comparing maybe 5 years previous to
Yeah,
the, to the next 5 years. I was just curious why you decided to do the rolling statistics in place of 5-year increments.
You're right there. Halfway down. That a little bit lower. PM1 visitor.
All right, yeah. Here we go.
Sorry, what slide was it?
I think it was either 39 or 40. I can't see your presentation right now,
I was
so
trying to pull it back up. I just closed it out. You know, I don't see it
You
right there.
minimized it. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, sorry about that. There we go.
Let's just scroll down. I already forgot again. I'm sorry.
39 to 40, I think it was.
I believe it was 39 or 40. Okay, I believe that's the one, yes. So you show rolling averages from 17 to 21 and then 18 to 22. So those two columns, they reflect 4 out of the 5 years that they reflect are the same years. Whereas if you did, if you had the 2018 to 2022, but then you had in the first column, you had the 5 years prior to 18. If I could suggest, I think that would give us a better vision of what has transpired during that amount of time, instead of using 4 out of the 5 years being the same in both columns.
I guess I can understand where you're coming from. That the reason we use the 5-year rolling average is because that's the actual measure that Federal Highways is asking us for.
Okay. So I just point this out because, you know, if we look at the time of COVID, people were starting to work remote. You can argue the point that, you know, maybe there was less driving on the road. So I just think the numbers would be very different if they were the 5 years prior to 2018. But I just thought I'd point that out.
Anyone else have any questions? Hearing and seeing none, I would be happy to take a motion for the adoption of the 2024 safety performance targets.
So moved.
And a second? Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? And the motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, second item on the, or the second piece of business today is the SNHPC fiscal year 2023 to 2026 tip amendment number 4.
Thank you very much, Mark. I am going to pull up a presentation myself. I'll try to be.
And for those who are looking for it, the pizza is on its way.
Yeah, I'm excited around the time because there's so many people ordering it for primary day, so.
The only one.
Can everybody see this in full screen mode online?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
I was like.
There is the pizza.
Why don't we wait 5? Okay.
All right, so the pizza has
The
arrived.
pizza has arrived. What's your pleasure, Mr. Chairman? Should I proceed or?
We'll delay for 5 minutes.
All right, a 5-minute intermission. So stay tuned, you all at the edge of your seat for tip amendment number 4 in 5 minutes.
Those online, bear with us for 5 or 6 minutes.
Yeah.
They're good. They're good. Actually, today is a remote learning day because since school is closed, voting, so they, you're being. They're just. Nathan's 8th grade. He's like.
So 30 seconds warning to those online.
Wait.
But then I stopped the coffee, so.
Seven. Gotcha.
Oh, tiebreaker.
35, that would be 3 guesses for 50.
All right, so we're gonna reconvene now. Nate, if you'd be so kind, just to get us started.
I will do so. Can everybody still see this in full screen mode? It got closed and opened a few times. Is it still in full screen mode online? Maybe.
Are we still muted?
We are not muted.
It looks good online.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. All right, so a brief overview of the forthcoming TIP amendment number 4. I showed this slide every time. I won't walk through it in too much detail, other than to remind everyone that the TIP, when we're talking about the TIP, we are talking about a 4-year document from fiscal 23 to fiscal 26 in our case. So all projects that have federal funding programmed for expenditure between fiscal 23 and 26 are reflected in our TIP. These are the projects that are closest to construction, that have made their way towards the front of the 10-year plan. So that is what the TIP is. DOT, we work with DOT and all of the other MPOs on development of TIP amendments. And we are working on TIP Amendment 4 right now. I'll walk through the project changes that you will see in TIP Amendment number 4 in just a minute. But schedule-wise, we are looking at releasing TIP Amendment number 4 on Monday, the 12th of February for a 10-day public comment period. That comment period will close on Friday, the 23rd. And next month at your MPO meeting on February 27th, we will hold a public hearing to consider adoption of TIP Amendment number 4. What is in TIP Amendment number 4? Well, a series of the non-EV CMAQ projects are going to be added as new projects in TIP Amendment number 4. As we know, and I think as we talked about, did we talk about it here or at the TAC meeting? The many of the EV related CMAQ projects were added into the draft 10-year plan by the Gasset and later confirmed by the governor. There are a number of EV projects that have been added in our region. The exceptions are the town of Derry's application, and now after the governor's review, the Market Basket project in Manchester is not in the draft 10-year plan. But all of the other EV related projects are in the draft 10-year plan, at least the governor's version of the draft 10-year plan in our region. Those will be added in a subsequent TIP amendment. Right now in TIP Amendment 4, we're just looking at adding the non-EV related CMAQ projects. But suffice it to say, in a future TIP amendment, many of those EV CMAQ projects will be added. So Bedford's project, 3,800 feet of curb sidewalk on Old Bedford Road. This was a CMAQ application and is now included. This is going to add the project with engineering phase work commencing in fiscal 25. That is the earliest that these CMAQ project funding comes available is fiscal 25. So engineering work would start on the Bedford project in fiscal 25. Similarly, Londonderry, the phase 7, the final phase of the Londonderry Rail Trail, which would connect all the way to the Derrytown line. That is also a CMAQ funded project that will be added in this TIP amendment, and with PE work, engineering phase work commencing in fiscal 25. On that same line, there is another project. This is a statewide project sponsored by the Bureau of Traffic at New Hampshire DOT. It includes 2 corridors in our region, 102 in Londonderry and 111 in Windham. This is signal coordination and signal optimization improvements for the signalized intersections on these corridors. There's also a third corridor in Seabrook that's part of this statewide effort. But we carry it in our tip, obviously, because of the Londonderry and Windham components of the scope of work. This would again be added with PE work commencing in fiscal 25. So those first three projects, all in the same category, non-EV CMAQ projects that will be coming into the tip. A pre-existing CMAQ project from a couple of cycles ago, the construction of a roundabout at the entrance of Dairyfield School. The engineering work is continuing on that project. The construction timeline is going to move out past fiscal 26, so beyond the current tip timeline. The reason for that is Dairyfield School was the original sponsor. My understanding is that the school has requested that the city of Manchester take the role of sponsor. So there's going to need to be an agreement between the city and DOT to bring that project to construction. So there's a delay as a result of that kind of switchover of who the project sponsor will be and what LPA agency is going to be responsible for this. So project is moving forward. It will just basically be a city project moving forward rather than the school itself being the sponsor. Manchester, this is another CMAQ project, the final one from the final non-EV one in our region being added. This is the Mammoth Road project. It includes a series of interconnected improvements, including signal improvements, some geometric improvements at certain intersections with turn lanes, as well as sidewalk improvements. There are some gaps in the sidewalk network that are being filled as part of this project on Mammoth Road. So it's kind of an all-encompassing set of improvements on Mammoth Road. This will be added to the tip. Currently, PE work is engineering phase work is scheduled to begin in fiscal 26. There is a change to the statewide complex bridge inspection program. What is a complex bridge? A complex bridge is a suspension bridge, a cable-stayed bridge, or another type of bridge with unusual characteristics. These are some of the more involved bridge inspections that happen around the state because of these unique bridges. There's a statewide program called the CBI program to do that. And this tip amendment will add supplemental funding to the program for the period between fiscal 24 and 26. That's simply a result of what DOT anticipates that its expenses are going to be for complex bridge inspections during these years. So we're just reflecting what DOT anticipates the bridge inspection expenses are going to be. There is a long-standing program in the TIP that's called the MOBR program, the Municipal Owned Bridge Rehabilitation and Replacement Project. This is different than the State Aid Bridge Program. The State Aid Bridge Program is state money. This is off-system federal money that supports municipal bridge projects. The program is going to be removed from the TIP. The projects continue. It's just going to be that the projects are going to be individually listed in the TIP moving forward rather than encompassed in this kind of umbrella program. So you'll see individual projects, bridge projects in the TIP that will be listed as having MOBR funding associated with them. So that's not changing. None of the projects in the program are changing. This is really an administrative change. Instead of encompassing all those projects in one statewide program called the MOBR program, for transparency purposes, it helps when we list those individually. So we'll be doing that moving forward. There is one of the child projects of the 101 corridor is the 13692E project. This we have carried historically in our TIP because theoretically this corridor includes the town of Bedford. This particular project, the E project, we now know will occur entirely within the town of Amherst. It will be a corridor improvement obviously, the town of Amherst is not in the Southern New Hampshire region. It's in the NRPC region. So we will take the E project out of our TIP. We don't need to carry it. It won't actually occur in our region. The F project, however, 13692F is a project that we just added. It will appear in the TIP in the future. And it's in the draft 10-year plan. That will be the update of the engineering study on the Bedford side of the 101 corridor. So But the E project will occur entirely within the town of Amherst. I think lastly, the town of Windham, the intersection project at Route 28 and Ralston Road. We added this into the 10-year plan a few cycles ago. It is moving its way through the engineering process. The construction timeline is going to be moved from fiscal 26 to fiscal 27. And the reason for this, as we understand it, is more time is needed for project development due to constrained staff resources. So a 1-year delay on the Windham intersection project for construction purposes. Engineering continues. Any questions? Those are the projects that will appear in TIP Amendment number 4 when we release it in February. You'll all have a chance to review the actual TIP Amendment document in the weeks prior to next month's MPO meeting. But if there are any questions now, I'd be happy to take those.
Anyone in the room with questions today?
I have one.
Anyone outside? All right, Jeff, go ahead.
So, yeah, you said the EVCS is going to be added later.
Yeah, that should be in a future TIP amendment. Right now, DOT is adding the non-EV CMAQ projects, but the EV ones that are, assuming the legislature retains the EV ones that Gassett and the governor have proposed, those will appear in a subsequent TIP amendment, possibly TIP Amendment 5.
So, but HB 2024 has already been introduced into the House that includes the EVCS, right?
Yeah, so there's 3 phases of the 10-year plan kind of process. Gassett, the Governor's Advisory Commission on Intermodal Transportation, held all of its public hearings, developed its version of the 10-year plan. Then it went to the governor. That's the second phase. The governor spent December and the first part of January with the 10-year plan, released his version of the 10-year plan last week. And now HB 2024 is the legislative phase of that process. They start with the governor's version of the 10-year plan in the House Public Works and Highways Committee. It is introduced, the 10-year plan, every cycle gets the House bill of whatever year it is. So this year it's HB 2024. 2 years when they introduce the 10-year plan, it'll be HB 2026. So HB 2024 is the legislature's vehicle for finalizing the 10-year plan. They start with the governor's version of the 10-year plan and make any changes they see fit from there.
So what's the purpose of doing a TIP if say the legislature's already approved this and they're moving forward?
Yeah, there haven't been any changes ever to the non-EV CMAQ projects. So my sense is the Department of Transportation is comfortable including those in the TIP now. Those haven't been, any of the debate points at this point with the governor's review or anything like that. So theoretically, the legislature could make changes, but it's not anticipated. They could make changes to the EV projects. They could always add more projects. They could always remove projects if it was their desire to do so. At the end of the day, the governor's going to have to sign whatever version that the legislature comes up with. So there'll be further discussion if there's some sort of discrepancy between the 2 versions. But generally speaking, the process has been fairly smooth. It's just now it moves to the legislature. We don't know yet the date of the first public hearing. So the legislative phase is public as well. The House Public Works and Highways Committee will hold a public hearing. The public is welcome to go and share their thoughts about the 10-year plan during that process. So there is another opportunity for public comment on the 10-year plan. But at this point, the Department of Transportation is proposing putting the EV ones in, or the non-EV CMAQ projects in, and then waiting for that process to continue a little bit further in the legislative phase before adding the non-EV ones into the TIP.
All right, well, if you hear any information on the public hearing part, that would be great.
Yeah, we'll do. Let you know.
Any other questions for Nate on the proposed TIP amendment?
Lucy, is there anything that okay, thank you. That's good. Good to know.
All right, well, in that case, thank you, Nate.
All right, thank you.
We will move on to our third piece of business here, and that is Tammy Zaboyski highlighting the 2024 Winter Bike to Work Day.
Can everybody see my screen online?
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, so Friday, February 9th is International Winter Bike to Work Day. We will be celebrating it here in New Hampshire on a statewide level. Winter Bike to Work Day is a good opportunity to encourage new folks to try biking to work so we can all celebrate the joys of winter biking together. I know that for some people it might sound like a really extreme sport. Sylvia loves to compare it to the polar plunge, which makes me feel really tough. But this is also an opportunity to remember that a lot of people actually rely on walking and biking year round as a necessary way of transporting themselves. So since this is a statewide initiative this year, we created a website here. One of the new things that we're doing is we are tracking participation by encouraging people to take a pledge to bike to work this day. We actually have 5 really great backpacks that were donated by REI Bedford. So if you take the pledge to ride, you'll be entered to win one of the prizes. When you take the pledge, you can add your destination to this map, which is really fun because you get to see where other people are riding. And you can also zoom in and see where some of the hot spots are. So we can use this to plan our breakfast station and some of our other events next year. So in our region, we have some riders in Hooksett. We have a big hot spot here in the Mill Yard, and then we also have some in Bedford as well. We have a number of events going on across the state. One of the most popular ones is the breakfast stations to support people who are biking into work. So you can stop by a few different coffee shops and get discounts. There's one in Derry that I just found out about this morning, so we just added that. We have 2 breakfast stations in Manchester, one on the Piscataquag Rail Trail and one at 88 Coffee. There will also be a winter bike home happy hour. That's a really great social event because when you're biking to work, you may know that a lot of people are joining you, but you might not cross paths with them because everybody's schedule in the morning is a little bit different. So when you all come together in one place to celebrate after work, you really get a sense of how many other people are biking to work, and it's a really powerful experience. We want to make this event as inclusive as possible, and we know that a lot of people just live too far away to bike to work. So we did partner with Manchester Parks and Rec to identify 4 different park and pedal locations this year. So the idea is that you would put your bike in your car, drive to one of these locations, and then be able to just bike the last mile or 2 miles to your destination. We've also once again partnered with MTA to offer free rides to anybody who brings their bike on the bus this day. I know that in May, they had 18 people take advantage of this promotion, so I'm excited to see how the winter numbers compare. And just like driving in the snow, biking in the snow is a little bit different. There are some different challenges that you have to take into consider this time of year. So our friends at REI are hosting a free winter biking 101 class 1 week before the event. On the website, we also have this little section here with winter cycling tips, so you can watch some videos and read some blogs on how to dress, some lighting guides, and bike handling skills. Then we have a few pictures from last year. We have a spot to download the poster, which there are also some over by the cookies, I believe. So feel free to take some on your way out. And then we have all of our sponsors, all the planning commissions and various businesses that are supporting this event. And it's not too late if you have a business in your community that might want to host an event, you can just reach out to me and I'll add it to our map.
Any questions for Tammy on the winter bike to work day this year? Anyone online? Seeing none, thank you, Tammy. We will move on to other business. So David, I understand you have a pitch to make for freight survey.
Yep. This will be brief. All right, can everyone see that full screen at home?
Looking good.
Thank you. So as some of you may have heard me talk about in previous TAC and MPO meetings, we are doing a commercial truck parking inventory in the SNHPC region. And one of the ways we're doing outreach for that project is through 3 surveys. We have here a quick rundown of the 3 surveys. The top one, which now is the only one bolded for some reason, is the Community Stakeholder Survey. This was sent to municipal officials within the SNHPC communities, such as planners, highway division, emergency personnel, town administrators. This is the one that we are looking at to get as much feedback as possible, and I'll have a link on the next slide. We also have a commercial driver survey that was sent to local companies and owner independent associations like the Owner Operator Independent Drivers Association and the New Hampshire Motor Transport Association. And then finally, we're going to be doing outreach to private facility owners, where we'll be conducting an interview as part of the site visits to try to see if there's any plans to develop additional amenities and facilities for commercial freight drivers. So to that respect, here is the link to the SurveyMonkey survey for the community stakeholders. Nope, that might be the wrong one. I apologize. I'll get it. But if you would like to take the community stakeholders survey, please contact me at email or phone number below. So we want to get as much people from the community to tell us what is happening with freight parking within their community. So if anyone could take the survey, feel free to take it, give it to as many people within town that will be knowledgeable about it, and please get us the results. Yep.
So, I guess what's this for, like 18-wheeler parking or?
Yeah, so this would be for, see if we get back to the Zoom. Okay, so my apologies. Thank you. Yes, this would be for 18-wheelers, commercial freight trucks. So anything that moves a large amount of freight, like 18-wheelers, there is very little parking for those type of vehicles in our region. And we have a lot of warehouses and goods that need to be moved in and out of the region for the economic lifeblood of our area.
So it's like when they're in transition, like overnight or?
Yeah, it could be overnight. It could be waiting to make a delivery.
Okay.
So if they don't have any parking, if they're waiting to make a delivery, if they're waiting for a warehouse to open at 6 a.m.
Okay.
They need to find a place to park while they're waiting for that warehouse to open to, either drop off or make their delivery. But also too, they do have hours of service that they have to follow where they have to take mandatory rest breaks. And if there is no facilities for them, then they're going to park in other areas where they can find a place to pull over, be it on the side of the highway, be it in a Walmart parking lot or an abandoned gas station.
So the ultimate outcome of this would be to
Right now,
locate new truck stops?
well, right now, the project is to inventory what we have. Now, from that data, it may be another project where we look at additional areas, but right now we're trying to get an inventory of what we have in the region.
Plus, not only that, I think it's also awareness for our communities. For example, we recently did, Dave and I worked with Londonderry on 2 developments of regional impact. And they were both really large warehouse projects. And so some of our comments, because of our emphasis on freight and parking, we sort of, suggested the notion of overnight parking at the facility, because if you're a facility and you're expecting a lot of truck traffic and they have to rest or the place isn't open, where are they going? Are they now parking like illegally on roadways or trying to find a safe place to park? So that you move the issues to somewhere else. If we're working with planning boards and having them reconsider their regulations where they now work with the developer to ensure that there is a safe place to park on a site, on a warehouse site. Now you've taken care a little bit of the issue, especially if it's a timing. So anyway, I think it's also just that general awareness and conversation to sort of brainstorm some solutions.
Any
All right.
other questions for David? Anyone online? Seeing none,
All right,
thank you, Dick.
thank you.
All right, any other business to come before the MPO today? We'll take that as a no, so we will adjourn the MPO. Can I, do I have a motion in the MPO? All in favor?
All right.
Beautiful, all right. And so now we will call to order as the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission. And we will do as we did before, action on the minutes and concurrent roll call. Can I get a motion on the minutes of December 16th, December 19th? We got a motion and a second? Second, all right. Sylvia, if you could find all those, I will make it a quick phone, quick points. The spelling of her name is different in minutes than in the roll call.
Okay.
With that, Sylvia.
Okay, we're gonna skip right to the towns that are present. Chester, we have Deb Munson. Deerfield, Brenda Berry,
Here and there.
Earl Rhodes. Berry, both Birch, Jeff Moulton,
Here and yes.
John O'Connor. Oh, thank you, John.
So,
Francistown, Gary Schneckenberg.
Here and yes.
Goffstown, Colleen Mayu. Here. Jacob LaFontaine.
Here and yes.
Londonderry, we have Art Rudd
Here and yes.
and Brian Battaglia.
Present and yes.
Excellent. Manchester, we have Peter Capano,
Here and yes.
Ray Clement,
Here and yes.
and Marcus Ponce de Leon. You still with us, Marcus?
I am here and abstain.
Thank you, Marcus. New Boston, we have Mark Sunan,
here and yes.
and Wyndham, we have Ed LaPointe.
Here and yes.
In Pennsylvania. Thank you, Linda Kuhnhart from Francistown. Thank you so much. We'll pen you in, none of that pencil business.
So our first piece of business today is the Pathways to Play pilot program, recap of our map, Susan Nienaber.
Yeah, and Zach's gonna join me to talk about the mapping too.
Exactly support.
Zach is running support on this one. Okay. Oh, wait, I think there were two different, sorry, bear with me. So let me share my screen. Do I open it first and then share? I think I share first. Okay. Sorry. So sharing my screen. I think this is the right one. I'm getting a little bit of background noise if any folks at home might want to mute. And I'm gonna, oops, sorry. I think this is a big screen. Adam, can you see this in the screen?
Yep, looks good.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so folks have heard about Pathways to Play in previous presentations. This was a 2-year initiative that received funding from the New Hampshire Children's Health Foundation to really help our region assess and increase opportunities for access to play. It's been a really great journey. We actually just wrapped up the grant at the end of 2023. And we've presented on various aspects over the course of the last 2 years. Today, we're going to focus on kind of 2 key final deliverables. Let me see if I can move this guy a little bit? I don't know if I can.
Yeah, you can go to the ellipses
Go to the ellipses.
and
Hide. There we go. Thank you. So just a reflection on what we're trying to do. So this was funded by a health foundation. So their goal under which this project was funded is to prevent obesity in children up to age 5, really looking at childhood obesity and seeing where you can start at an early age. We kind of took that goal and developed some kind of process goals and outcomes that we could actually implement as a regional planning commission. So we assessed barriers to recreation. We wanted to provide our communities with tools to promote the recreation facilities that do exist And we had a key goal of assisting one community with a pilot project. So some activities that were part of this, we've presented about the community survey, that detail is available online. We've done extensive community outreach, but today we're going to focus on GIS mapping, and we're going to talk about the pilot project. And hopefully kind of point you to some longstanding resources that will be more evergreen and useful to all of the communities in our region. Okay, so on that note, I want to remind everybody that we do have a project website that will remain up. There's a lot, it basically consolidates a lot of the key resources that have been highlighted throughout this work. tinyurl.com, pathways to play, SNH. So this is a great place to go if you're kind of interested in recreation planning in some capacity and want to look at a resource or something that we generated out of this project to inform your work. This is where you're going to access the regional GIS map that Zach is going to talk about. And this is a really cool interactive piece of work. And it's also where you can download a copy of New Boston's place-based action plan. So this has been a really fun journey to go on with the town of New Boston. And we're really excited to share this plan, and it might be something you want to turn to for inspiration as well. So just a reflection on how the pilot project unfolded. We actually did a region-wide call for projects back in this early summer. And we opened it up so basically anyone could nominate a site in their community or an initiative in their community that they wanted to work on. We ended up receiving 4 different nominations, and we did some vetting with various recreation departments that would have been implicated. And it became very clear that New Boston was pretty much far and away the one place that was well positioned to move forward with the pilot, just in terms of having a location that was well suited, having great buy-in from the recreation department, and a lot of community enthusiasm, which we really felt was key to making this a meaningful effort. So it was a really quick initiative. We basically did some intensive work together in the fall and put together a place-based action plan in December. And it's we're really excited about it, actually. So just some background on how we got to this location. There was a parent in the community who nominated the town hall playground as a place they wanted to focus on, specifically because they had very young children and thought there could be more opportunities for toddler-friendly equipment, better surfacing that made it more accessible if you're pushing a stroller, things like that. We talked to Mike Sindoni, who is the wonderful recreation director in New Boston, and had a really lovely conversation with him. And he reiterated that this is a very well-loved, well-used playground. People are always there. It is indeed probably due for an update in the next few years, but he really wanted to be cautious about managing expectations as we did community outreach. He didn't want people to think this is going to be like a shovel-ready project that we're going to turn around next year. So we got a little creative in thinking about, well, what is going to be most valuable as we think about this playground and also other recreation priorities for New Boston. So what we decided to do is really expand the geographic focus to encompass the entire village center, where you have about 8 different recreation resources within a mile. And a lot of it is very, very walkable. And the vision for this work that came out of our conversations with the recreation department, as well as the stakeholder committee that kind of convened and guided this work, was that they wanted inclusive and interconnected play spaces throughout the village center. And they wanted to be responsive to the needs of all ages and abilities. This notion of maximizing inclusiveness really was a seed that we moved with from the beginning. So a little bit about our planning process. There were a lot of different components to this. So we had a wonderful volunteer work group, very well represented from the Recreation Department, the Conservation Commission, the PTA, the rail trail, the library. We had Highways Department sit in on a couple of meetings too. We had like some very fun community engagement. So a lot of it was focused on the September 30th farmers market. That was the last farmers market of the season, and it was a great place to catch people. And so we did some surveying, some mapping. We developed a cool scavenger hunt and like located different things to find throughout the village center. So people, you could tell like the age group that was really drawn to that. Like the 5th or 6th grade was like, I'm on it. Let me find all of these pictures around town. And then we also did a community survey online that generated 55 responses. We were very interested in facilitating some knowledge sharing opportunities. So we hosted a call between city staff and DOT traffic engineering staff, just to talk about some of the practicalities about like what would it take to get pedestrian crossing on some of these state routes where people are crossing. There was a crossing at some point. It had been eliminated due to various rule changes and over the past several years, and just talking about the, what would it take if they wanted to reinstitute those crossings? And I can dig deeper on anybody who wants to talk more about that. I can share the detailed notes. And one of the most fun knowledge sharing activities we did was a field trip to the new inclusive playground at Griffin Park in Wyndham. So it was so awesome to bring like recreation directors, together. I think the town administrator was there. Like, it was just, we were able to talk about, well, what were the implementation practicalities around actually making this work? Where did the funding come from? How long did you have to wait for the surfacing to dry and make so you knew that people could walk on it? We got into the nitty gritty because that is definitely a direction for the future of the town hall playground. And then we did some of our own research and analysis. We wanted to see where this work stacked up in terms of the master plan. We did a manual bike ped count just to see like where are people actually crossing, whether or not there are crosswalks. We wanted to know how the village center crossings were being used. So I'm not going to go through this in detail, but I'm just going to highlight, there are 4 goals that kind of underpin this plan, and I'm just going to highlight one particular strategy from each that might be of interest. So goal 1 was communicate and clarify. And what we learned from the survey was that, and from talking to people at the farmers market, so there are a lot of questions. People weren't sure if they could use the school facilities or park at the school parking lot after hours. So we realized that there was a lot we could do just to make people aware of what's available to them. We ended up building upon the scavenger hunt map we created and really giving people more information where they needed it about, like, this is when you can use school facilities. This is a way to access the rail trail. This is indeed a public right-of-way. People weren't fully aware that there's a public right-of-way that could take them to the official rail trail entrance. We also wanted to make folks aware of where restrooms were available, because that's a real accessibility concern. So in fact, the town hall offices do have restrooms that are open during working hours. So this was a really important resource. They're going to start to distribute that from the recreation department, but also look for ways to post this and make this map widely available. Designing for inclusion, this was a really fun one to work on and really think through the details of what might happen in terms of improvements at the town hall playground. Just some highlights from the Wyndham trip. This is one of our favorites, was a group photo at the We Go Round. So this is a kind of, you don't have to step up or anything. You could roll a wheelchair onto this merry-go-round. Dogs love it too. And I also love thinking about inclusivity in terms of not just physical ability, but also ability to communicate. And so for folks who are nonverbal, this was a really cool feature of just ways to communicate that with folks that you're playing with. So we got a lot of inspiration from that trip. With goal 3, supporting walking and biking, one immediate outcome is that we have had some discussions with the PTA at New Boston Central School, and there's very much an interest in hosting a bike rodeo. People are interested. They have a wonderful rail trail in New Boston. People are very interested in building confidence among younger riders and looking for ways to do that. So we're looking forward to hosting that in conjunction with the school sometime in the spring. I don't think we have a final date. May 3rd. Oh, we do. Okay, fantastic. And then the last one was really looking for ways to tap additional resources. This is something that this is a little bit of an incentive to download the plan, because one thing we did was do a kind of resource scan of what are all of the funding opportunities that might support some of this recreation planning work that New Boston would like to undertake. And so this is a list of things that we thought were really relevant to some of the priorities for New Boston, might have relevance in your communities as well. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Zach to talk about GIS.
Is it on the other one?
Oh, I think it's on the other one. Sorry, I got confused.
So can people still see this online?
You see the map now online? You might have to stop and reshare it.
Do people see the online map?
There's with lots of green dots.
No, it's the list of all the presentations.
Oh, stop and reshare. How about now?
Looks good.
Yep. Thank you. So this was one of the products that, well, let's reload this here. Oh, it's because we've been there before. Never mind. So one of the products was we wanted to put together a ground level catalog of all the different recreation amenities that would be available to a child from 0 to 5 in our region. And no, comprehensive database exists for our region. So we basically had to take a bunch of different public databases, smush them together, and then, figure out what
Technical term.
technical, it's smush, and we smushed and smeared it together, and then we went out to the towns and, did some ground truth and say, does this place really exist? Is it still open? Is it appropriate for a child? That sort of thing. And so now we also, for those, we also wanted to say not only the location, but a number of attributes about it. So this is the Blackbrook and Blackbriar Woods Preserves in Goffstown, and includes things like, the road, what time it is. So it's a trail and open space. What are the hours of use, dawn to dusk? Are there emissions restrictions? I mean, you have to be a town resident. You have to be a member of, the YMCA, that sort of thing. A fee to use, and then off-street parking. And, and restrooms. And in this case, restrooms in this definition is not a porta potty. It's, a fully functional restroom where a parent could go in and change, a child. So now we have, over 300 different locations throughout our region. Let me pick another one. I'm picking on Goffstown, I guess. Here's the YMCA Allard Center in Goffstown. It includes the address, hours for something like this, it varies. They have a lot of different stuff going on. Is the fee to use? Yes. There are mentions and restrictions. Are the bathrooms? Yes. So now we have this recreation database that we're gonna continue to build on as things go forward. And if you happen to use this and you notice there's a mistake, a correction, please let me know so you can, and I'll make that change.
Where do we find this?
Oh, probably the easiest is off the project website.
That would be Pathways.
Pathways to Play.
SNH.
We can send it around as a public email, for sure.
Any other questions for Suzanne or Zach?
Yeah, I don't know if you realize this, I believe it's New Boston, to be the major source of meat and products to the Boston and stuff. They used to come up here, used to consider it one of their prime sources of meat.
New Boston.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And dairy products. They used to ship it second by rail.
We learned a lot about New Boston from spending time there. We learned that there's an anti-gravity monument.
Absolutely.
And I'm gonna let Mark.
Gravity Center. Yeah.
The anti-gravity.
Gravity Center.
The gravity center.
Yeah, Gravity Center, but they researched anti-gravity.
Oh, gotcha.
So they found out it doesn't actually exist.
Yeah, that's the corner of what, 77
And 13.
and 13, yeah. Okay.
Happy to chat more about it if anyone, down the line has a recreation planning project.
And you can probably reach that webpage through our webpage, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
so.
There's a lot of different ways to find it, so, but I think we can send up a follow-up email. For sure.
And my guess is if you went on to Google and you searched SNHPC Pathways to Play, there's probably not a lot of else.
Not a lot of-
It's a competition, so, yeah.
I have to say that we did a little bit, through our funder report, we did a little bit of assessment of like how many people have used the project website, and it got some traction. We did, we had about 1,000 people visit the site. And we had done a lot of social media campaign and newsletter outreach, especially around the pilot project. So I think it helped funnel traffic there.
Good.
Yeah.
That's great. That's pretty good. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Sylvia, any other business to come before the planning commission?
No, just a reminder, if you want in on that baby pool, please see me in.
All right, we have approximately 5 minutes. If anybody has any public comments or insights they'd like to share.
Oh, would this be a good time to let people know Francistown, Goffstown, and New Boston, if you want to bring home land use books to your town hall, you can arrange that.
Sure.
And that was again, Francistown.
Goffstown and Boston. We do
Okay.
have some others that are available, but I don't think they are represented here today, so. Yeah, it's basically as soon as we get the name, mark them as available.
And we advise them of, put it down your phone. All right.
With that, then I'd be happy to take a motion to adjourn. Got a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I want to.